Inspectors or health officers have directed producers to test foods which are not covered in any FANZAM document. It's not covered in the Food Standards Code, not covered under the ready-to-eat food guidelines. And they've said, no, you've got to do micro-testing. Won't happen up here, but it'll happen. It's happened where we come from, because these guys know better. You know, they walked into a butcher or a meat processor and said, that raw chicken, you have to do micro-tests on, or that raw meat. No, you don't. No. Not a chance. So, my recommendations in that case, where you believe you are being asked to do stuff that you don't need to do, is go back to them and tell them you will definitely follow the directive, and you do this in writing, as soon as they provide a list of the analyses they wish you to perform, what the acceptable limit is. Don't cross your arms, I see that. List of the tests, what the acceptable limit is. And if they can't tell you the acceptable limit, how are they going to interpret the report that you're going to give them? You've got to do E. coli, so we give them a count of 3. How are they going to, if they don't know how to interpret it, why are they asking you to do it? So they've got to tell you the test, they've got to tell you the acceptable limits, and they must tell you what the reference is for that acceptable limit. Once you've got that, because you need that in your food safety program, if you had one, if you do have one. But you write that in. We do this testing because these are those 3 things. As soon as they provide that information, off you go and start doing the testing. And as long as that is occurring, you're fine. Most of the time, that was as far as the investigation got. There was never any reply and there was never any testing done, because in fact you shouldn't be testing raw meats for anything. There's no guidelines anywhere. Okay? So for the EHOs, make sure when you're talking about stuff that you can write it back and you can give them that information. Why should I have to test my things for E. coli? Easy, read that. That's where it states it. There's the Food Standards Code. There's the compendium for ready-to-eat food. That's why you're doing it, okay? And that applies for water samples as well. You need to do a plate count on your water. Why? Why do I have to do a plate count? Where is it? Where's the standard? Okay. There's a lot of stuff in Queensland and New South Wales at the moment on testing compressed air to make sure it's not adding bugs to food. Really contentious issue. Don't go there. Okay, you've got bigger, there's bigger fish to fry, and there's more likely sources of contamination than bottled compressed air, which is blown over products or whatever. So there's a lot of work, and in some cases we just put an agar plate as it's gone along a line with the air blowing over and gone and got rid of it. Okay, not many laboratories will tell you this. How frequently do you need to test your product? Never. You need to, if you have a food safety program, you need to test it to validate it. You need to prove your shelf life. After that, you don't have to routinely test. Maybe once a year, if you're a high risk thing, health department might say, we want you to revalidate every 6 months if you were selling baby food or to a leukemic ward or into a really high risk group. They might say, we want you to validate the food safety program once every 12 months or something like that. But otherwise, not 12 months, every 6 months. Apart from that, you don't have to do routine testing. You only need to revalidate. If you have a food safety program, you only need to validate your food safety program if you have a major change to your recipe. If you decide we're going to stop using the mushrooms where we've got now, we're going to an organic supplier, that creates a risk. You need to validate that that has not changed the quality or the safety of your food. So any major recipe change, you would need to to go and revalidate it. But apart from that, you don't have to do routine testing. Don't let any lab tell you that you have to. You know, and if you are going to, a lot of people will just do those spoilage or indicator bugs, not the full pathogens. Unless you're selling to someone like Woolworths, then you really, believe me, then you've got to do the lot. But you do that. Valves will need to be repeated every 6 months to 2 years, depending on the risk of the product and the target consumer. So, and examples of that is a possible change of an ingredient supplier, as I said, addition of a risk ingredient, or a change of a target consumer group. All of a sudden now you're starting to sell your little tubs of homemade yogurt to infants or elderly or a healthcare facility. That's going to mean you need to revalidate. Again, it's the two documents that you're looking at is the compendium for ready-to-eat food. And then we quickly just go on to comparison of food suppliers. Any person who this works a little bit better from where I come from, but if you're buying food from someone or someone's a supplier to you, you should be able to ask for a microbial specifications sheet. What specifications do they believe they're meeting when they supply you food? Are they saying it's free of listeria? Are they saying it's free of salmonella? Their E. coli count is less than 3. There's no bacillus, there's no Clostridium. Normally, you will have a specification sheet that you would meet, and people should be able to supply you with that. A little bit more difficult up here, but in our state that's just compulsory. I'm not buying your product. What's your specification? Can you send it to me? I'm going to take your specification sheet, compare it to the Food Standards Code. Why haven't you listed Clostridium? Your products are grown in the ground, aren't they? Why isn't, that sort of thing. That should be on file. Product specifications, laboratory proof of their, if have it, food validation program, laboratory proof of their shelf life period. If they've got a shelf life period on it, can I just see the proof of that? Remember to check the report looking at plate counts. Okay. For comparison of food suppliers, so that's that information you should get. In a minimum, can I see your certificate of registration? Have you by any chance done any testing on your product? Water activity or anything like that. I'd love to see any, something that gives you that feedback that they are really working. They're so conscious, of what they need to do. When you're doing comparisons, you can certainly look at those product specification documents for two new suppliers who want to supply you with something, their shelf life periods, and this is one of the times when maybe yeast and mold counts can be a good indicator of quality. So you can do, even if they're not they were category 4 in that thing and they were sandwiches or something, doing plate counts of yeast and mold and comparing them is really quite valid here. And plus, once you've done that, you've got a standard that you can compare with. So in 6 months' time, your product seems to be going off and it's spoiling a lot faster. Go back and test those ingredients again. They go, hold on, when those products you sent me at the start, I was getting plate counts of 1,000 to 5,000. I just retested the last lot you've given me and it's got 1.6 million for a plate count. And mold count is 1,000. When we first did it, molds were coming in at less than 10 and 20. So their product. So you can go back to them and go, hold on, this is your problem. What you were sending me at the start and what you're sending me now is not the same thing. Okay, so there's usefulness in using that. And therefore, knowing the normal results can provide you with a baseline for future checks of their product.